Hello and welcome to the latest edition of China Inc. by Bamboo Works, where we discuss the latest business and financial news from China and what it all means. I'm Doug Young, Bamboo Works Editor-in-Chief, and I'm joined today by Renee Vangesten, one of our founding partners, who's also a longtime China watcher and former investment banker. Today we'll look at companies getting fined for refusing cash payment. We'll also zoom in on a potential bid for the U.S. operations of TikTok, which could be shut down if the company fails to sell itself to a U.S. buyer. We'll start with a clampdown by the central bank on companies that refuse to accept cash. Fast food chain KFC was in headlines after one of its stores in Henan province refused to accept cash from a customer trying to pay for breakfast. But it was really part of a larger group of companies that were all fined for similar violations. So this issue is becoming increasingly touchy in China, where the vast majority of payments are now electronic, mostly using WeChat and Alipay. Notable groups that still prefer to pay cash are older people who aren't so tech savvy, and also international travelers who lack access to Alipay and WeChat. So, Renee, do you think the central bank's action will make any difference, or is the disappearance of cash inevitable, and does it really matter that merchants are even being ordered to accept cash?
Wow. Well,
Is cash going the way that
I thought cash was king, but I can't help but think about the contradiction in here somehow, because the Chinese government has for quite a long time worked on building its electronic currency, which obviously provides the ultimate control over who does what with their money or not their money, only to be pipped in terms of actual success on the ground by the likes of Alipay and WeChat Pay and so on. But now kind of saying, hey, we have to forget about electronic cash. We have to continue to accept hard cash, physical cash, or whatever. And I mean, the reasons are pretty valid reasons. One would think that people thought about that before, but whatever. If not necessarily about foreigners, at least about the older generations in China. After all, I've always been told that the older people in China fully respect it and venerate it and all of that. And then you see something like this and you scratch your head and you say, what happened to that concept? But, whatever. If you run a business, if you're a merchant, you would think that you would want to make sure that you can grab all the business that you can. And in this case, very obviously, even if you forget about foreigners, not too sure how many foreigners go to that KFC in Henan province, probably none. But, there's a portion of the population which is not ready to handle, payment apps.
Mm-hmm.
Unless you want to write off those customers for good and forever, you have to take cash. Now, believe me, I'm one who experienced that actually. I mean, I was able to adapt to it very quickly. But when I went back to China for the first time after COVID, I went to Beijing and no taxi would accept cash. And my connection on WeChat Pay to my foreign credit card had been discontinued during COVID. And so I couldn't use it. So I had to rely on customers and friends to actually book and pay Didi rides for me, which I felt like was pretty unfortunate. But it's then now on one hand, China wants lots of foreign tourists to come back, and yeah, you would think that somebody finally in the Minister of Tourism or Foreign Minister has woken up to the idea that these people come over with cash and not with Alipay or WeChat Pay.
Right.
So I expect, as always, not everybody will comply, and some will, and probably it will probably depend also on what part of China. At least when you look at tourism, I would think that the big cities that attract a lot of tourists will if they have not already been willing to accept cash from foreigners, will, change their practice because it's just, good common sense business.
Okay, well, that was going to be sort of my second question. I mean, you were talking about the older people. I guess we'll see what happens with them. But, when we're talking foreigners, they really do have very few options when coming to China other than credit cards and cash. I mean, do you think this is going to have a big impact? I mean, foreigners are already sort of lukewarm on coming to China anyhow, I guess, because of bad experience during COVID and, it's just not the hot destination it used to be. I mean, do you think this is going to impact, the foreign willingness to come to China, both for tourism and business travel over the longer term?
Well, it's kind of funny because unless travel agents tell foreigners that they're not going to be able to use cash in China, I don't think that foreigners necessarily, when they decide to travel to China, I don't think that they know. I mean, look, when I came back for the first time after COVID, I had no idea this was going to happen to me. So I don't know, maybe those who use travel agents to book maybe will be forewarned by their travel agents. But otherwise, I would think that a lot of foreigners are arriving in China today for the first time and having no idea what's going on.
And then they're getting totally screwed up. Well, they are trying to, to do signs at the airports and stuff, showing people how to hook up their credit cards to Alipay. But, you don't think that like word of mouth even would just get around like, oh my God, my China trip was a nightmare. Although maybe it's not. I don't know. Maybe people are figuring things out. So sounds like you're saying you doubt it's going to be much impact, over, I guess, the medium.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't consider myself to be a top level techie, but, I was able to figure out how to use WeChat Pay. For some reason, I never went Alipay. But I was able, to figure out how to use WeChat Pay. I don't know if it was easier for me because I had a Hong Kong credit card, which is why I tied my WeChat Pay to, as opposed to a credit card in Europe or in the US. I don't know. But it's not that difficult. But I would guess that, for some foreigners who are not particularly tech savvy, and don't have to use payment apps in their market where they live and so on, that is probably a challenge there.
Okay. All right. Well, sounds like you're saying, and I probably agree with you. People will figure it out. And yeah, let's move on to our next topic, which is a potential bid that's been shaping up for short video sensation TikTok's U.S. operation. Many people will recall that the U.S. passed a law last month that would ban the app in the country if its Chinese owner, ByteDance, doesn't sell the U.S. portion of its operation to an American buyer. Now, former Los Angeles Dodgers owner Frank McCourt said he's assembling a group to bid for the company. And some of the other participants in that are Guggenheim Securities and a law firm called Kirkland & Ellis. Now, this is despite the fact that ByteDance says repeatedly that TikTok isn't for sale, as it fights the U.S. in the local court system. So any thoughts on whether TikTok might change its mind? And if it does, would this kind of relatively small group be able to obtain the financing for such a massive deal that's probably going to cost billions of dollars?
Well, will they change their mind? I think eventually they will, because they will have to. I can understand on one hand that a business who is told to do something that it doesn't like comes out and basically says, I'm not going to do it.
Right.
That's okay. I think it makes sense to some extent. On the other side, I don't think that they're going to buy any favors in the political circles in the US by saying, we don't care that you told us we're going to be banned or we have to sell. We just don't want to sell, period. That is not necessarily politically speaking a very savvy move. But then again,
well,
who knows whether
it's savvy for China. I think they're probably trying to play to Beijing on that sort of a stance.
Well, that was going to be my next comment. Now I don't know if this is a statement that came out straight out of the mind of the owner and founder of TikTok, or whether that is something that he was directed to say by whoever. So I've heard all the comments about this is not constitutional, this, that, whatever. Look, when companies don't want to do something that the government wants them to do, they find all kinds of justifications or whatever. They will always find lawyers who are willing to get paid a lot of money to sue. So that's kind of par for the course there. I would think that eventually, even if that gets some traction, U.S. Congress government will find other ways to get to what they want, which is to eliminate what they have convinced themselves is the case, eliminate potential undue influence from Beijing, especially when it comes to elections and so on, but also, being able to collect informations about tens of millions and hundreds of millions, actually, of American people.
Right.
Those issues are not going away. So one way or another, there will be a time when something is going to have to be done, either a sale or an outright ban. There are other considerations to this. I mean, Facebook, WhatsApp are not allowed in China. Why? Because China thinks that it's going to pollute the minds of young Chinese people. So, the U.S., aside from potential electoral interference, the U.S. has obviously, all justifications to try and accomplish the same.
Right. All right. Well, I mean, we should also point out here, because we're talking about, these buyers, that Donald Trump was trying to force a similar sale during his presidency from 2016 to 2020. And there were a few buyers that came out during that time, or potential buyers, and those included Oracle and Microsoft. If TikTok does change its mind, you didn't really comment on this Frank McCourt group, but who else would you see as potential buyers, and what are the chances, that they, might, because they could also get vetoed by the U.S. Someone like Facebook probably would never get very far with the bid to buy TikTok just because it's too monopolistic.
Yeah, of course. I mean, Frank McCourt, I think it's a very long shot. I think I've read somewhere that valuation could be as high as $40 billion US dollars. But his long shot or shot in the dark may actually, who knows, create interest on the part of other people or companies, whatever. Microsoft, they're obviously super busy these days focusing on AI primarily, which is working very well for them. Oracle, I'm not sure I ever really understood why they wouldn't want this, but there are other tech companies or tech entrepreneurs who, may join in the fray, or some media companies.
About Elon Musk, we could get.
Yeah, maybe. Although, this would be actually probably about the same amount of money as he paid for Twitter, now X.
Yeah.
Could they find a lot of synergies with what they're doing, not just with the parks, obviously, but with their media side and so on? I could see some media companies taking interest or maybe teaming up. Who knows? What's also interesting is that when Trump was doing that, the Democrats were opposed to it because he was Trump, obviously. Then they got into power and now they're fully in support of it. And I don't know, maybe Trump gets elected president and he says, no, it's okay, we're going to keep it. Who knows?
Well, he has said that. He said TikTok shouldn't need to sell. I think one of their investors, an American, like convinced him, one of TikTok's or ByteDance's investors convinced Trump that this wasn't a dangerous thing, and he sort of flip-flopped.
Well, yeah, but I mean, look, we are in electoral year, so all kinds of things get said, especially by him under those circumstances, which have a tendency not necessarily to materialize once he gets into power. Only time will tell.
Okay. All right. Well, we got a few more months left to we have to start worrying about that. All right. Anyway, let's wrap things up there. Thanks everybody for listening this week. If you like what you hear, please tell your friends about us and rate us and share us on your favorite podcast app. And don't forget to join us again next week for another edition of China Inc., when we'll look once more at the latest trending Chinese business topics. Hope to see you all then. Goodbye for now.
Thank you all. Goodbye.